When you're a leader, you really do have to take a lot of risk. You have to do things that you're not always comfortable with, and you have to do things before you're ready. But a lot of people, I think, are struggling with that. I see it a lot. I see it a lot of the people who I know are like women who are entrepreneurs, even men who are entrepreneurs, people who are trying to create change, do cool things, but there's a way that we're hiding a little bit. I'm Deb Blum, and this is the Inside Out Activism Show. Thanks for being here today. So we're going to talk a little bit about courage and doing things before we're ready. So people sometimes will say to me, "Oh, like, you have this YouTube channel, and you have, I don't know what I have right now, over 40 videos." And people will say, "How are you comfortable doing that? You look so comfortable." And so I'm not going to lie that there is a part of me that, I agree. I actually have become more comfortable with being on video and with speaking off the cuff about things, but it hasn't been that way all the time. I was really scared to do these videos. And I remember my coach that I was working with for probably a year had said to me, just have conversations with people. You don't even have to record them. And I wouldn't even do that because I was afraid. I had all kinds of fears around it. And then, she would, I'm trying to think of what ended up happening with me. I ended up just biting the bullet and doing both. I did recording the conversations and the conversations at the same time. But it was like a moment's time. I kind of just became more ready. But let me tell you some of the things that I think are important mindset shifts that we need to have if we want to be able to take more risks out there. So for me, it happened to have been about public speaking and speaking out on these videos. But for you, it could be anything. It could be doing talks, doing a workshop. It could be starting to do coaching, getting your first client. It could be, finding a partner for your business. It could be launching a new product. I mean, there are so many things, right? It could be having that courageous conversation with somebody. So here are some of the things that I think are most important for us to be knowing about this, is that one of the most important things is, specifically when you are speaking out or putting yourself out there, putting a message out there, is that there does seem to be a lot of pressure from the outside to be perfect, to get it right, to know exactly what you're saying, and to only put out a message when you are 100% sure this is what you think. That is so in contrast to what human beings are. Human beings are becoming. We are not just a thing. We are not a static, fixed thing. We are a becoming. So who I am in this moment is different than who I am in the next moment. And who I am today is different than who I am tomorrow, because I have learned more, changed, I've grown. I may have healed something within me. I may have had an aha moment. So when we come at the world from the place of it, you need to know it and be right, it does put a tremendous amount of pressure. Nobody would ever speak about anything publicly if that's what they held on to. Now, one of the concerns right now is that there is a movement toward like digging up old things from people and then holding people accountable for things that they said in the past. And I do think that that's a really, really risky and dangerous place to go, because it really doesn't allow people the space to be able to grow and change, and it also doesn't allow people to take risk. And I happen to be a believer that the way that we evolve our mindset and we grow is often through this kind of conversation with people. And it can be conversation where I'm actually in a talk with somebody, or it could even be that I speak and then people give me feedback, and that can be a conversation. It could be through comments. And so there are many ways that we grow and we learn. And to hold a person accountable for something that they posted in the past or said in the past, and then basically hold them to the standard of that, of where they are now. I mean, a lot of people changed. There are all kinds of people who did all kinds of bad things in the past, and then they have grown and changed and become a different person. So that's the first one, is that we have to be willing to know that we are going to change our mind, that we will likely be incomplete in what we say, that we will learn and we will have a new perspective at another point in the future. So that's super important, because especially when it comes to things like podcasting or video creation or talks, or even posting on social media, we have to be willing to just speak where we are right then. And we have to know that we have to get comfortable with the reality that we will probably miss the mark, that we will probably change our minds, that we will probably grow and expand. I mean, if you're doing it right, if you're doing life right, you will grow and expand. So you have to be willing to be wrong. That's one thing. Another thing is that we have to be willing to do things before we're ready. So I was not always good at taking that advice, but I would always get that advice. Like my coach would say, go ahead, have these conversations. And I was like, no, I am not ready. But I found that I was never ready. So when I finally bit the bullet and I did my first recorded video, I realized that I had a lot of fun with it. And I realized, yeah, I have a lot to learn, but I'm not that bad. So I was willing to put myself out there to learn and to grow. So the question is, are we willing to do something before we're fully ready? Because that is actually how we learn it. I think it's Marie Forleo that talks about that we get clarity through action. I really believe that. So the more that we're stuck in a place where we're not taking action, usually it's because we're in this place that we aren't fully clear. We don't exactly know what we want to do. We don't know exactly what we want to bring into the world. We don't exactly know how to do it, and so then we don't do it. So my encouragement for you is to take that next step, which is the next piece, which is all you have to do is take one itty bitty step. So one of the most intimidating things for me has been when I look at a project and I see the thing I want to create, but it's like down the road and it's like, let's pretend this is not true. But, well, okay, so there's some truth to it, but like, let's just say I thought I wanted to be like Oprah Winfrey. So I was going to start a YouTube channel. Well, that is really intimidating if I imagine my future to be that I'm going to be like, some famous person on, mainstream television and, have a huge audience. I don't even know what those steps would be. I have no idea how I would get there. I probably wouldn't get there, but if I did, I have no clue. And it would be daunting, right? But I don't need to know the path. All I need to know is the next first step. So in the beginning, the next first step was things like getting a video camera and, doing my own practice videos and getting my lighting right. But over time, like my next first step is just, calling a person and asking them if they'll be on my show. So we only have to do the next step in front of us. And so I want you to imagine yourself as like a flashlight and just put the flashlight right in front of you. And then what is that next step? The next thing you're willing to do that's courageous, but not so courageous that you're so intimidated by it that you won't do it. So we have to kind of put the pieces in here, like not need to take huge steps on things, but to be willing to be courageous enough to take a small step towards something. Because when you look at this and you just see it as this huge thing that you're trying to accomplish, it is true. You probably won't do it because you don't even know all the steps that need to get you there. But I would encourage you that if you have a big project and you want to do it, it is one of the things that I think many people do is they get afraid that they can't do it. But there are people out there. I mean, this is like one of my areas of expertise is helping people to be able to map out a plan. So when they want to do something, like they say they want to put out a big course or something like that, I'm really good at helping people to take a look at all the steps that need to be in a project plan, and then helping you to find that next first step. Because what we need to do first is we almost have to like expand our vision to be really huge, but then we have to focus our action. And that's really hard for a lot of people to look at the big view, to see all those steps, but then to only take that one little step ahead. I have shifted a little bit. I used to work in a project planning kind of a way where I had a goal and then I would build out a project plan to it. These days, I definitely am much more in a new space, which is I don't know what's going to happen with this channel. I don't even know what I'm building right now. I'm just out here building something, and every day wake up and take action that feels inspired towards something that I'm building. And I don't need to know the answer of what I'm creating as much as I used to think I needed to know. Or, in certain instances, I do need to know. So if I wanted to create a course right now, I definitely need to know some of the steps that need to go into that so that I can map it out and know what I'm creating. In this particular case, I'm more on the path rather than I am goal-oriented. So what have I said? So we definitely need to be willing to need to be willing to be wrong, to be incomplete, to not fully know and to make a mistake or to miss the mark. We also need to be able to look at things from the perspective of being courageous enough to take some action to get clarity, to basically know that we have to do something. We have to take that risk, that we have to do things before we're ready. and that readiness and like skill will be developed by doing it. It's like if you want to ride a bike and you've wanted to ride a bike for a really long time, but you never get on the bike to ride it, then you never do it, right? So I just am getting back into mountain biking. I mountain biked many, many, many years ago, over 20 years ago. I mountain biked, but I was never really that great at it. And now I'm getting back into mountain biking. And, there are days when I'm really scared and I don't want to go back out there. But when I do, I know that if I do, I'm going to get better. So I have to get on the bike and actually have to spend time out there on the hills and trails and riding. When my son wants to get better at tennis, he has to play out there. It's the number of hours that you're out there doing it. So the only way we get to the place where we're ready is by actually doing it. And the other piece is to take one little itty bitty step. It doesn't require us to have the whole plan fully mapped out, knowing exactly what we're going to do. We can have a really huge vision, but all we need to do is take one step each day. So if we could be doing those three things, I think we would be probably doing a lot more really cool stuff out there. So I encourage you to, listen to these three ideas. Where is it that you feel like you're most kind of held back? Where are you not taking the action? Listen, we're ready when we're ready. I also recognize that when I look back and sometimes I say, why didn't I start this channel earlier? And I say, I was in preparation mode for many, many years, and that was okay. So there's no judgments. Like what you're doing right now, no judgments. And if you really want to take action, I would definitely recommend that you take action in your own way, in a really, be gentle, be honoring of how scary it can be to be putting yourself out there doing something new, and recognize many people have done it. There are a lot of people out there who have taken a lot of risk, and some people have fallen down and gotten hurt and gotten back up and wipe themselves off. I mean, that's one of the things we have to be willing to also, I think that I'll add two more things to this. One thing is, and this is something I've learned through mountain biking, is we can do hard stuff. Just because it's hard doesn't mean we have to stop. I cannot, sometimes I am really struggling to get up the hill, and you know what? I push myself because I can do hard stuff. And that is a really important thing for all of us, I think, to really internalize. You can do hard stuff. And the second thing is that when somebody gives you negative feedback, or you mess up, or you don't get it right, it's okay. It's okay. That's what life is about. I actually tell my clients, so we do a lot of work on triggers and on inner stuff, that's part of what we do. And we also do work on trying to be more empowered and set boundaries and to listen to your inner voice. And my clients will sometimes call me and be kind of uncomfortable sharing, like, oh, I heard my inner voice, but then I didn't listen to it and I did this other thing. And I'm like, awesome. Because in the beginning, when we're more conscious of our inner voice, we actually need to sometimes not listen to it so we can see the consequences of not listening to it. We can see how we feel a little nauseous afterwards, that we feel like we sometimes have to go back and say no to something that we said yes to. And part of our journey is in actually kind of making mistakes. It's those mistakes, it's those times when we miss the mark, where we actually are able to learn and to hear, like, listen more closely to that deep inner voice, to be more aligned with what's really right, to make the right decisions that feel most aligned with us. It's actually in making those, taking the risk, doing the thing, and then seeing that it was wrong. I have missed the mark so many times. I have done so many things that haven't panned out to, they haven't turned out to be the thing that was really successful. And when I look back, some people will say, oh yeah, it was in my failures that I learned so much. And sometimes I get a little uncomfortable with that, but I'm like, actually, it is sort of true. I don't like ruminate on them. I don't sit in them. I don't wallow in my sorrows on them. I just look at them and I say, yeah, like that was a bust. I tried to do that workshop. Nobody signed up. Oh, well. Now, one thing I've also learned, just I want to point out one other thing, that just because something doesn't stick the first time, sometimes it does stick later. So don't give up either. A lot of things need some serious persistence. So if you're pretty sure that this is something you really want to do, I highly recommend persistence and keep putting it out there. If there's a point where it no longer feels aligned, there's no reason to stop. These are some of the really important things to just understand, that we have to start to look at things and stop being so fixed in our idea that you have to get it right away, that you have to know exactly what you're going to do. I was judged so many times on this journey for being being flighty and not having a good enough brand and changing my brand message too often. I think that's sort of like, adolescence, like you're trying to find out who you are. Well, I think in your business, a lot of times we're trying to figure out who we are. And I disagree with it. I at the time, I didn't disagree. At the time, I was always kind of heartbroken when people said, oh, are you can't make up your mind. Why do you always change your mind on what you want to do? And it was painful for me to be judged in that way. But over time, I have come to understand that that's partially just who I am. And one of the things my coach has taught me is how to hold a much bigger container for myself so that I can have many projects within that without having to fully define myself in a box as I'm a this, I'm a that, and to have a brand that is under my name that basically says, you know what, this is what I am, who I am, and what I do is not who I am. My brand is who I am, and what I do are the projects that I do within that brand. And that's something that's very freeing for me. It's been really, really freeing for me. So as a leader, as somebody who's going out there, trying to put yourself out there and doing more cool things and bringing yourself and bringing your gifts into the world, hopefully some of these ideas and thoughts will help you to be more courageous, to take action on things that you might otherwise have not taken action on because you're held back by the idea that you have to be perfect, you have to get it right, you don't want to disappoint anybody, you don't want to disappoint yourself. You don't want to get negative feedback from people, and realize that it's okay. It's okay. And you are going to be awesome. Just take those baby steps, put yourself out there, and you really can make a lot of progress by taking tiny little steps and being willing to do things before you're ready. Thanks so much and have a great one.